Hello, everybody. Hello. Over the past few days, there's been a lot of conversation going on. The conversation on whether or not hiding names in Pro Ladder is a good idea. If it brings enough pros, or if it brings just too many cons. And so what I've done is I've actually come up with a summary of everybody's responses. Well, not everybody's, but a good majority. So if you don't have time to go to everybody's YouTube video, don't worry. I watch them for you. So a little background. On February 3rd, Thor Serpent, or Vlad is the competitive esports head of, he's in charge. He, along with CDPR, they didn't give us any warning at all. They said, hey, we're turning off Pro Ladder names. And then he said, how do you guys feel about that? After it was already done. They left the avatars and they left the borders. But Vlad flipped the switch, so to speak. So here's a vote on Twitter. And it looks like 64% said great. And 35% said not so great. So you're always going to have yays and you're always going to have nays, right? If I was looking at this from an outside perspective, I would say you would want to see a little more yays, right? Because, you know, if you implement an idea, you're like, okay, this is going to be a great idea, right? So I would want to see like 85% maybe. Maybe that's unrealistic, but personally, I'd like to say 85% Kappa. So a few people responded to this. Actually, a lot of people respond to it. I even respond to it, but I'm not going to show you my response because this is going to be a summary. But I will go over how I feel about it towards the end. You have Demorcus, if you guys know Demorcus. Demorcus, competitive player. He said, after seeing the implementation today, I'm not a big fan. I missed the feeling of rivalry within the match. You know, I actually agree with Demorcus there. Whenever I would go against another streamer or something like that, I'd sit up straight and I'd say, okay, guys, I have to focus. Facing a direct competitor on Pro Rank gives it a special touch. Not the same if you know it afterwards. I agree with that. There is some type of like interpersonal like rivalry, competitiveness, and it makes it fun in that sense. Also nerve-wracking. Because if you're going against a really great player, you're like, oh god, I'm going to get crushed. Also, Centurion Lion is OP now. Top players will understand. He says top players will understand, but that's like one of those memes that like you're like only 2,000 kids would understand this, but everybody understands it. Everybody knows Centurion Lion plays unique decks. We'll leave it at that. So there's Demorcus, and then you have Adzikov. Adzikov, everybody already knows. He's been in a lot of tournaments. Like and dislike it at once. Likes and dislikes it. Okay. It prevents some shady stuff, at least helps. He's referring to sniping, I guess, or win trading. Win trading is where you know someone, you queue into them, you know them, you're like, hey, I know that name, I'm gonna help you out, brother. And then you go skadoop and you forfeit the match, and then they get points and they get to the top of the ladder that way. What is good, but on the other hand, losing even more to surprise value decks is gonna be frustrating. What about open deck lists? So, surprise value. If you notice, Demorcus talked about Centurion Line being OP, and then Adzikov talking about surprise value. So, that is a big deal with both of them. And Vlad responded about the open deck list, and they went on back and forth about that. But that was Adzikov's thoughts. And you have another person's thoughts. You have Magueta. So, if you guys don't know Magueta is like some like hardcore Nilfgaard player. I honestly don't even know if he's pro ladder, but you will see him around. He's very well known for his tweets. Good. I like seeing the pro rank players sweat because they'll lose to surprise, like most people who don't play hardcore amounts. How much skill is involved in playing so much you memorize lists and people's names? That's different than recognizing leader, how to best play versus it IMO. So Magueta is saying it takes more skill to recognize a leader than a player in what they play. You should be going off the leader. Now, I won't go into it right now, but what Adzikov was saying about surprise value, it has different layers to it. And so these are the tweet versions, right? So we have the tweets now. So now we have a good understanding about how players are thinking just to the poll, like their initial reaction, because this was February 3rd. One thing to note is that when they hid the names, they didn't hide the avatars or the borders. So you can imagine, if you know someone's avatar or border, they're going to have to switch it every single game, every other game, you know what I mean? As like, or you're going to know who they are, right? Because there's not enough borders to be unique, right? And so it's kind of weird. Like, why would you remove the? Now I'm giving you my opinion. Why would you remove the name and not the border? Like, maybe it's a bug. Maybe it's a bug. All right. So those are the tweets. Now we can move on to the YouTube responses. So this is where I did you guys a favor, because a lot of these videos were 20 minutes long. So yeah, I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them all. So first you have Spiro. Spiro came out with the problem of hidden names. He was the first, I believe. The problem of hidden names. So I don't have a list of what they all said, but I get the general gist of it. So Spiro's problem is that the surprise value, as what Iadzikov was saying, is surprises that you can't even play around, because it's a different type of surprise, right? Because you have surprise where you're like, okay, I can see they're working towards something. And then he was bringing up the example of Neneke Igni. I'm sure you guys have heard that example before, and it's just like beating a dead horse, right? But it's an example. So Neneke Igni works with pincer maneuver. And so what Neneke Igni does is they'll wait till round 3 or whatever. You won't even know. You'll think it's a normal deck because there's no way that they set it up. And then they pull Neneke and Igni off their leader ability, and 2-for-1 card. They blow up your entire board. So Spiro is saying you can't play around that, because if you play around it, you might win some games playing around it, but over time you're going to be losing points, right? And so if you're losing points, then on average you'll lose more games by playing around stuff like that than win more games. So when Magueta is talking about recognizing a leader, it's fine to recognize a leader. I'm not giving my opinion here. I'm just saying what Spiro thinks, I think. It's fine to recognize a leader, but how are you supposed to recognize a leader, but they're not setting up anything, right? They just have it hidden in there. Spiro was talking about how if you're he didn't say Bruver specifically, but the mover boy, the mover Scoia'tael boy, like if you move there, then you can be like, you can reasonably say, okay, he's moving me for a reason, right? But with Neneke Igni, there's no rhyme or reason to it. They just play it in one card, and so you have no idea if they're going to be playing it. Spiro also mentioned about the avatars in the border, and how it's like a metagame within a metagame, right? Within a game, like you'll be able to see what people's borders are and stuff like that. So I can definitely see Spiro's point of view about the borders. I of course agree with that. With the Neneke and Igni, we'll get more on that later. Then next on the list was a Mr. previously known as Lord Bushwick, now known as Busher unless you're on Reddit, and then he's still Lord Bushwick. But Busher said in his video that for those of you that didn't want to watch Spiro's long video, he condensed it down to 8 minutes. And he basically said the same thing in different words, I think. And Busher was pretty passionate. I would dare say he was almost even more passionate than Spiro. Why? Because not only did Busher do a YouTube video, but he also did a Reddit post. And he talks about the topic, and then he talks about the lack of understanding when most people mean by surprise value. And I think that's what I touched on just now in regards to surprise. If you're going to have a game that has surprise value, right? If you're going to have a game that has surprise value, then at least show us some way that it's working up to it, right? Because you can't play around everything. I think everybody can agree that you can't play around everything, and you're going to lose points playing around everything. One of my flaws, which I've been told in the past, is I try to play around everything. Probably a little less so now, like, you know, you evolve as a player and stuff like that. If you, for my credentials, Spiro said in the video that he's a top 25 player. Busher in the world, mind you. Bushwick's a good player. He's obviously pro ladder, top pro ladder. Myself, when I tried 2 seasons ago, I got top 100 just to show that I could do it. Because it's not like impossible, right? So I just want to let you guys know, like, I see where they're coming from. I do see it. One of the things they were saying about the names is you can still find out people's avatars and stuff like that. And one of the ways to mitigate Igni Naneke or something. That is, for example, when DeMarcus was talking about Century Line's OP now, that at least when you saw Century Line's name before, you're like, okay, he's running shenanigans, right? Or he's probably running shenanigans. So that's the only way that they could fix it before. So Lord Busher kind of touched on that in the same way. He might have said some other stuff, but you know, the videos kind of melded together to me because like they seem pretty similar. And then finally, you have Freddie Babes, who just came out with the video 1 day ago. And his is why hidden identities on Pro Ladder are great. I couldn't finish it because his title was so long, but that's basically what he was talking about. And so Freddie Babes was saying, hey, the names are a good step in the right direction. He agreed that the borders and the avatar should probably be taken away. But he was saying that, he didn't say this specifically, but this is what I got from it. Don't hate the player, hate the game. He's saying that you shouldn't hate that the names are being hidden, right? It's the interaction of Naneke Igni. That if we're going to fix stuff, then we should fix the interaction between Pincer Maneuver, the 2 cards, and Igni and Naneke, right? If you fix that, then it makes it a little bit easier, and then we can do the setup and stuff like that, right? So that's what Freddie Babes was doing. And also, Freddie Babes in his YouTube was like, and this is where I got the music from. So I'm using his music for this video. So that's everybody's thoughts in a nutshell. Freddie is saying that it's the interaction with the cards, they should be fixed, but the hiding of the names is a good idea, right? I personally, you guys know, I go in the deck builder a lot. A long time I'm in the deck builder, right? And it would be pretty bad if, and so a lot of times people see my name and they're like, oh, it's OceanMud. He's going to be running shenanigans and stuff like that. But it's not just that. I put a lot of love in these decks, right? And so I think it's kind of cool if it's hidden. And let's not forget, I was thinking about this too. Let's not forget, Pro Ladder is not exactly Pro Ladder, right? A lot of people in Pro Ladder do want to have fun. I know that the top of the Pro Ladder is more of, you know, it's more condensed and stuff like that. But if I were to remove all these right here, let me just show you. I think there's everything, right? If I were to show you right here, there's currently 1,000 people in Pro Ladder, and it didn't start with 1,000 people, right? It was the top 500. So right now, it's February 10th, right? And we already have 1,000 people. That's about what's that, like probably like 300 people or something like that. 500 people have already made it to Pro Ladder. So probably by the end of the season, there'll be at least like 2,000 Pro Ladder players. Do you think all those people are going to be going to top 500? I don't think so. So they want to play unique decks and stuff like that, right? And so I don't, that's not exactly what the issue is, you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is people want to put fun stuff in and kind of get away with it. And so I can understand that. I can understand where they're coming from. And I can also understand where Spiro and Lord and Busher are saying about how they want to, you know, if you're going to have surprise cards, then there needs to be some type of lead into it, right? That you can understand. And I think that's what CDPR needs to, they need to take a look at. And I think they will be taking a look at it in the future. Trinet touched on it a little bit. I think Trinet was saying that his biggest issue was the cosmetics, as well, the avatars and the borders being shown. In the discords that I'm in, there's been talk about, you know, maybe removing them, seeing how it goes, seeing how the Pro Ladder goes before they implement it into the main ladder. But what I wanted to really do is I just wanted to give you guys a brief look, if you didn't have the time, on how everybody feels about how Vlad initiated it, how some of the Pro Ladders and even some of the more casual players, but players that still like to play competitively, as well as the videos. So if you like these type of videos where I'm actually just, you know, giving a brief summary of how everybody feels, then just let me know in the comment section below, and I'll make more of them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.